Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 13 of the Live Your Jam podcast. Today, we're discussing the Enneagram, a powerful system for self awareness that I've been using for myself and in my leadership development practice with clients for over 20 years now. It's helped me understand why I act as I do, shining a light on my unconscious patterns that have been dominant in my life. And it's really been transformational. And unlike some of the personality tests that primarily describe surface traits, the Enneagram zeroes in on why people behave the way they do, their inner motivations, habitual responses, and the underlying strategies, which really makes it especially powerful for self awareness and growth. So I call the Enneagram the strategy of the child. We have an expert joining us today, who I'm going to introduce in just a minute here. It's a core nature and nurture framework. I believe it's more focused a little bit on nurture. But again, these are all going to be interesting topics we're going to touch on today. And as we all know, the strategies in life that serve us at one point might keep us stuck elsewhere down the road. So I want to just talk one moment about how the Enneagram fits so well with the Live Your Jam philosophy. So Live Your Jam isn't about fixing yourself. It's about understanding yourself and celebrating who you are to the fullest, and also recognizing what patterns may be blocking you and your highest self and your ability to tap into the divine within you and also just lead a life from your soul. And I really truly believe that the Enneagram helps us understand what drives us and what we need at a core level and how to meet those needs consciously and continue on our self growth of health. So that's a better thing than continuing on a path unconsciously or subversively. No judgment, but again, if you're devoted to a path of self-awareness and your highest self, it's a wonderful tool. So today's episode is especially meaningful to me because I have my guest is somebody whom I've admired for a long time, and I also have the pleasure of knowing. I'm going to give you her qualifications and then have her come on. My guest today is Beth McCord, also known as your Enneagram coach. To date, she has trained over 2,500 coaches in 30 countries. She's an author of 12 Enneagram books and has a huge social media presence. She's on Instagram as your Enneagram coach. She has a YouTube channel that she hosts with her husband, Jeff, called Your Enneagram Coach. Jeff is also an expert in the Enneagram, and they make an incredible duo in terms of spreading this work and doing good work in the field of the Enneagram. Jeff and Beth train coaches. So I am delighted to have her in here. I also want to mention that the podcast has been very successful. Live Your Jam's like baby junior, and we are aspiring to help as many people as Beth and Jeff have, but their podcast has over 3 million downloads to date. So Beth, welcome and congratulations on spreading the Enneagram and being an expert in this field.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be so much fun. I just can't wait to dive in.
I'm thrilled to have you here. Beth is a master at talking about the Enneagram in a way that is simple, accessible, and deeply human. And we met 10 years ago now, right?
Yeah, like literally 10 years ago. I mean,
At an
almost literally 10 years ago, because it was the very end of January of 2016.
in San Francisco at
Yep.
an Enneagram workshop. It was a 5-day workshop, and we got a certification, and I was drawn to Beth, who I'm going to let you tell everybody your type, and then we're going to get into all the questions here. But share a little bit about that why you went to that workshop and how it started for you.
Oh gosh, where it started. We'll make this very quick. We'll go back to 2001. I was introduced to the Enneagram. I loved it, dove right in, and I consumed the Enneagram probably for the next, let's say, 10, 12, 13 years, but mainly through books because, as we know, there wasn't the YouTube channels and the podcast and all the social media. And so most of my learning was through books, but I really craved for more. And we'll probably get into, really why I went to the workshop. That to be said, I went because I knew the Enneagram really well, but I wanted a certification and I wanted better understanding in how to work with people, like to be a coach. And that's exactly what this certification process was going to be with Ginger Laptabogda. And boy, I loved every second of it. I just could not have enjoyed something more. And that's where we met. kind of take it from there.
And I have to say, I was so impressed with you because your knowledge was so extensive. The Enneagram, at the thing, I'm like, why is she here? She knows. I mean, you're very well versed in the Enneagram. And so, I admired you from the start in terms of your knowledge and your integration. And so you went there really to kind of learn, like, how do I train coaches how to do this?
Kind of a little bit of the backstory of why I went was going to my Enneagram type. And so my Enneagram type is a type 9, the peaceful accommodator. You alluded to this at the beginning, was the Enneagram tells us why we think, feel, and behave the way we do. And most of the time, we're unaware of these core motivations that we have, and then the ramifications that they can have on us when we're unaware, negatively and positively. So that when we're unhealthy, they're negative. When we're healthy, they're positive. And the idea is you want to be aware, because if you're aware, you're going to probably choose healthier paths. But in the seasons leading up to the workshop we went to, my thought patterns were very typical of type 9 of my voice doesn't really matter. My presence doesn't matter. I should assert myself. But I wanted to use the Enneagram in really big and powerful ways because I could see how much it could help people. And I had a boss at the time who trained coaches in a different kind of way, but I knew she had a lot of insights and advice that she could give me to kind of like say, oh, Beth, I can see that you would be really good at this. You should go for it. I was kind of looking for that moment. Not only did she not give it to me, in fact, she didn't really want to hear much about the Enneagram from me because my job kind of put me at the low man on the totem pole in the business. And so like, who am I? And what I learned also was that we train people unknowingly how to treat us. And I was basically training her to overlook me because I overlooked myself. So she really didn't give me the help or the atta girls, you should go for it. And so I felt really depleted. And on top of that, she actually then was given a book on the Enneagram from a friend and posted on social media and was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read this and learn about this. And I'm so excited. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like for the last year, sporadically, but over the last year, I've been trying to show you how cool this is and how great this is. So when I saw that post, I immediately felt a surge of energy, frustration, anger, sadness. And I literally stood up, walked straight out of the house. I passed my husband, who was like, whoa, what's going on? And I was just like I knew I couldn't talk. So I was just like, just look at Instagram. And so I grabbed my purse, got in the car and drove. And I really screamed probably for the first 5 minutes. And as I turned around about 15 minutes into the drive and started coming back, I had this voice inside quietly, gently saying, why are you so angry? And I'm like, are you serious? Didn't you see that post? Do you know how much I've been overlooked? Like, why can't people see what I have? And then there was silence for a little bit. And then the voice said again, very nicely and quietly, no, really, why are you so angry? And it was clear as day. I said, I'm angry at myself because when I permit, I promote. That was my aha moment. I can either continue on this path of overlooking myself, thinking that I don't have anything to offer, no one's going to listen, or I can choose to develop myself, to assert myself, and to bless people, whether they take it or not. And that's the path I chose. So when I literally drove home that day, got into the driveway, I knew when I enter the house, everything's going to change. I have to find the certification program that's going to fit me and our needs at the moment, which were vast. Jeff didn't have a job, so things had to change immediately. And that's when I discovered Ginger's certification program. And it was literally like 2 to 3 weeks away. And I signed up. I knew that I needed to go have that be an impactful moment so that when I came home, I would literally put boots on the ground and create a coaching business and make this work. And that's really kind of what happened. And so being there were so many big moments that gave me the assurance that I was on the right path.
When you were telling me the story about the 9 being overlooked and acting like somebody is like raising your hand up, but then putting it down, like, hey, let's talk about the Enneagram. Let's train people on the Enneagram. And then that being overlooked and that reinforcing this kind of belief that you have, this unconscious belief that I'm not going to put myself out there and I should potentially stay small or merge with what somebody's giving me. You had this moment, which was like, no, I'm not doing that. Right. And that voice, I always, whoever that voice is, I'm like, You may not like the question that voice asks, but you have to be brave enough to answer it. And
Right.
you did. So it's funny because when you showed up, I was like, oh, this woman is an expert. You seemed in your own power. It was great. And you harnessed what my type is, which is the 8, which like we have no problem. We have this
Yeah.
energy like that burns, right? And you were
Yes.
like, I'm going to harness this anger, this frustration, this drive, and I'm going to
Mhm.
contain it. And I'm going to use all of that energy to put this forward. Because
Yep.
after the workshop, how long was it when you published your first book then? Because the book was
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, thanks. It was 3 years. 3 years
Yeah. I mean,
from, yeah, when we left, just everything that unfolded from really what I call my anger moment,
yeah.
passion moment, being in the car, everything just kind of, it was like a domino effect.
Right.
But one thing I will say, and I know this will help some of the listeners, is that just like you said, I knew that that fire, which really is passion, and the, anger is passion, and when done rightly, easily, especially for my type as a type 9, I could pack it away, make it go, like hide, numb out, check out, in fear of what it could do to upset others. And I
Yeah.
knew I could not do that again. And so anytime I kind of felt a potential waning in that energy, that fire, I was like, heck no. So I kept saying yes to things, even if I wasn't, let's say, 100% ready or prepared. But knowing, I mean, I would only say yes to something I knew I could get ready for or prepare
Right.
for. So, like, if
Right.
someone asked me to speak or coach or do something that was within my realm, but maybe not fully ready, I was like, yes, I'm going to go for that. So that's kind of the same with the book. And I grew up with a reading disability, and so bad that when I was in 8th grade, I was reading at the 4th grade level. So thankfully, by the time I got to 12th grade, I was reading at the 12th grade level, but everyone else is like reading college level. But I at least kind of caught up. But that all to be said, the thought of writing a book ever in my lifetime was never in the deck of cards.
Yeah.
But when I was presented that opportunity, I was like, yeah, let's go for it. We'll figure it out. I don't have, and this is the great thing about living your jam, is that you don't have to do every piece of it by yourself. There are other people that can come alongside you and support you where you're weak so that you can shine where you really do shine. The gift that I give to the Enneagram community is I make this really beautifully complex system easy to understand,
Yeah.
digestible, and easy to use in everyday action and just knowledge. Okay, so if that is what I'm really good at, but maybe I'm not the best writer, okay, well then how can I get someone to help me to write what I know is inside me? So
Right.
these things are like just so important because we get hung up with, but I can't do that part of it, or this part's going to create problems. Okay, well then there's got to be a solution so that you can continue on your best path.
I love that story. And I also like the reminder about taking this step and then having others support us in the work and what we want to accomplish. And also using the system to kind of understand what you're up against and what, consciously and what's unconsciously there. So I think we talked about you being a 9 and my being an 8. And so let's kind of start to break this down. When somebody hears the word Enneagram, and it is a complex system, and they think, oh, another personality test. What do you want them to know right away?
I mean, they're probably like, oh, I've learned all the personality stuff. I've learned my Myers-Briggs, or I've learned my Strength Finders or DISC. And I just want to say all of those are so important and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
What most of them are doing, though, is they're showing you your preferences or your behaviors, like what's external. What the Enneagram is doing is it's getting to the internal, the why you think, feel, and behave the way you do. And the other big thing about the Enneagram is that it is going to show you whether you're doing these things in a healthy or less healthy way. And the reason that's so important, so I talk about the Enneagram, if you can kind of think of it as an internal GPS. Back in the day, you would say a map. But if we think about it as an internal GPS, you have your current location, which is your main Enneagram type. Let's say I want to go to see you in the Bay Area in California. Well, I'm going to put your address in and it's going to take me there. So let's say you're my healthiest destination as an Enneagram type 9, right? There is a place where a type 9 is going to be their best, right? Their healthiest, truest to themselves. So The Enneagram is going to say, hey, here is your main type, and here's the direction for your personality's healthiest path. Well, that's great. So let's just get on and let's go. Well, easier said than done, right? Because we've lived our whole lives doing both healthy and not healthy things. And a lot of those unhealthy parts of us came out of our childhood, where this little child within us is just trying to survive and it's using all the strategies it has at its disposal. But a lot of times they didn't work or work well. And in fact, sometimes they're really harmful. What we need to do now is wake up to who we are, to our personality, to why we do what we do. And the coolest thing about the Enneagram is that it's not saying one type is better than the other, because every Enneagram type at their healthiest are literally the most amazing people. And every Enneagram type at their worst are literally the worst. And for their own reasons, they look so different, but their impact is still great. The point is to know you, not someone else, but you. And that goes to the point of who do you have mentoring you, teaching you, training you, your boss, influences, etc. Who are you reading? Who are you listening to? The reason I say that is most people, especially influencers, writers, etc., coaches, they're like, hey, I figured this out. I figured out X, Y, and Z. This is what works for me. Therefore, it's going to work for everyone. So here's my internal GPS. Follow my path. Here I am in Nashville. This is where I live. So if I'm heading to the Bay Area, but I get a coach that's like, hey, I figured everything out, but they're a different Enneagram type, then they give me their GPS from Nashville and it's heading to New York City. Guess what? I am not going to go in the right direction for me. I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to feel shame. I'm going to feel stalled, stuck, derailed, etc. And I'm not going to understand why. Like, it works for them. Why not me? Well, I have the wrong map. I need my map. And so this is why it's crucial to understand your personality structure, why you think, feel, and behave. Just as important, I should say, is then, okay, so then what's your healthiest direction? And let's head there. The other part of the Enneagram that is crucial is you want the Enneagram to also be rerouting you. And what I mean by that is we're driving along, let's say you're on the highway. Well, oftentimes that inner child or defensive mechanisms, strategies that have not been very helpful pop up, but we still believe it's helpful or we wouldn't be doing it. And so we start to take on those characteristics and behaviors, and all of a sudden we're veering off our healthiest path. Now, a lot of times we don't know it because we're just convinced we must do it this way, right? This is it. But if we use the Enneagram like a rumble strip on the highway or that alert system on our GPS that says, reroute, you're going the wrong way, that is crucial. But most of us don't have this kind of alert system because we don't even know it's the wrong thing to do for our personality style. What I mean by that is, so for me, different from you, being a type 8, when I see that someone's upset, frustrated, discouraged, there's tension in a room, I want to hightail it out of there. I want to become small. I want to people please. I want to merge with whatever I can do to make the atmosphere peaceful and everything's okay.
Yep.
That sounds in some ways lovely, right? I mean, like
Yep.
a lot of people
Yep.
want harmony,
Right.
but that can actually be the worst thing to do. So I need an alert system within me, now that I understand it, that says, hey, you are veering off course. You have the opportunity right now to either course correct and get back onto your healthiest path for you as a type 9, or you can keep going and you're going to find yourself in the same pitfall that you constantly find yourself and get frustrated with. This is how the Enneagram can be so powerful, because I have now the knowledge, the awareness, and the agency to choose what is going to be best and most healthiest for me. And as a coach, this is what I get to help each of my clients with, because if I was coaching you as a type 8, I should not coach you from just a type 9 perspective. That is not going to work for Ellen.
Right.
Right. And so I need to come alongside you and support you with your internal GPS, not mine.
Yeah, really important. It actually really resonates, and that's one of the reasons I love the tool, is because I think we all have our own answers. So the Enneagram teaches us to find out our own answers. There's a system that we can help navigate, but it's so true. Like what I do in this work, and I think you do, is I consider myself a teacher, and that means you can find out the answers for yourself, because I don't
Yeah.
know them. I can teach you some things, but you have to decide. I want to highlight your example. So what the Enneagram does in terms of a map, it's that situation that you're talking about where there's conflict. So the Enneagram really highlights when there is stress. What are in my type, what are the typical behaviors that I might lean into? Because those are when they're stressed, we're usually hijacked, right? And we're just going
Right.
into a defense kind of fight or flight mode. And we're not really consciously, that's a subconscious or unconscious reaction. So I want to share one example on the 9. I had a client who, in her family system, when there was conflict, the way that she was taught to navigate, if she wasn't involved in the conflict, let's say that with the authority figures in the home, there is
Mhm.
conflict. She was brought into that conflict in terms
Mhm.
of taking sides and or refereeing or cheerleading or understanding, having a position emerging into a conflict that she really wasn't a part of, and for a young child was should not have been, right, should have
Right.
not been a part of that. It wasn't her issue. So when she got into workplace systems, if she was gone for 2 weeks for work, and or there was an issue, like, her way of providing support for the team was leaning into
Mhm.
people's conflict or getting involved. And we all know that's not really a healthy approach to things. It's you
Right.
weren't
Right.
involved. And actually, from a leadership perspective, we need you to be objective, right?
Right.
We need
Right.
you to help bring this to resolution, not merge and get into the conflict. But in her world, when the stress rose up was conflict, the way that she was shown love when she was little and got
Yeah.
cookies and validation was
Yeah.
by being a cheerleader or a referee. The way she recognized this was by going away from work and for a week on a vacation and coming back and being like, I noticed that I didn't feel as valuable. And so, to your point about what the Enneagram also does is it provide that map in times of when we're stressed, and then also too when we're in these growth modes, when we're actually moving towards that place that we want to go to. So I
Mhm.
think it really helps people that way. Moving along, I love the way you just shared your answer to all that. So when people hear 9 types,
Yeah.
what are these types actually describing?
A lot of times people are like, there's only 9 personalities in this entire world. Well, that's where I get to come in and say, no, this is a really vast, complex system. But each Enneagram type has 2 numbers next to it. And those numbers are called wings, and they do influence. They don't change your type, but they influence how you show up in the world. And then we have 2 numbers that we're connected to in these lines. So if you looked at the Enneagram symbol, it looks like a 9 pointed star. And each point is one of the 9 personality types. And so if you draw a star, a normal star, there's all these lines to the points. And so each Enneagram type is connected to 2 other types. And again, those influence our Enneagram type, but it doesn't change. Like we don't become those personality types. So
Beth has amazing tools. You
mm,
have like a free tool that I still use, Michael. You created it. I looked at it. The date was like 10, like 8 years ago or something. And I
yeah,
still use
yeah.
it with my clients because you have an unbelievably clean and easy way that you kind of explain.
I just wanted to highlight that yeah, there are 9 basic types. And the key to each of the 9 types, when you're trying to find your main type, and there's lots of great assessments out there, we have one on our website. Those are starting points. And what I mean by that is because the Enneagram is trying to get to why you think, feel, and behave, the assessments are trying their best to get to that why. But if you're not clear why you do what you do, the assessment can't be as clear.
Right.
So when you're trying to find your Enneagram type, you're trying to find the Enneagram type that has your core motivations. And there are 4 core motivations: the core fear, desire, weakness, and longing. And again, can't go into it all today, but let me just tell you the 9 personality types, and I'll kind of just give a 1 sentence, maybe 2 on each of them. So you can
Oh, I
kind of
love
have
it.
just a little perspective on each of
Thank
the
you.
9 types. So the type 1, and these are the names that I use at your Enneagram
Right.
coach. Different coaches or teachers will use different names, and that's perfectly fine. So the type 1 is the personal reformer. They're motivated by integrity and goodness. They fear being wrong or corrupt, and they long to live with honesty, virtue, and inner rightness. The type 2 is the nurturing supporter. They're motivated by love and connection. They fear being rejected or unwanted, and they long to feel truly wanted, loved, and appreciated. The type 3 is the admirable achiever, and they're motivated by value and success. They fear being seen as incompetent or worthless, and they long to be loved for who they are, not just what they accomplish. Now, the type 4 is the introspective individualist, and they're motivated by authenticity and significance, but they fear being flawed or insignificant in some way, but they long to be seen and loved for exactly who they are, which is special and unique. The type 5 is the analytical investigator, and they're motivated by competence and understanding. And they fear that they'll be overwhelmed or depleted of their inner energies, and that too much interaction with others will lead to catastrophic depletion. But they long to be capable, resourced, and that their needs actually aren't a problem. Now, the type 6 is the faithful guardian, and they're motivated by security and support. They fear being without guidance or protection, and they're looking to feel safe, assured, supported, and secure. The type 7 is the enthusiastic optimists, and I can just hear them right now going, whoop, whoop, because they totally would. They're motivated by joy and freedom, but they fear that they're going to be trapped in emotional pain or being limited and bored. And they long to be fully satisfied and content. And the type 8, which is your type, the passionate protector, they're motivated by strength and protection because they fear of being harmed, controlled, betrayed, and left at the mercy of injustice. But they long to know that they aren't going to be blindsided, manipulated, and that they can protect what matters most to them. And then last but not least, my type, the peaceful accommodator. We're motivated by harmony and inner stability and peace of mind. We fear conflict, disconnection, and being overlooked, but we long that our presence matters, that our voice can make a difference, and that we can be at peace and harmony with everyone. So that's just a very quick overview of the 9 types.
I love your descriptions there, and I love the gentle languaging you're giving to them. And there are many, there's a common framework, and somebody like my 8 is the challenger, the 9 is the, I mean, and this is in the normal kind of, not normal, but very common. And some of the big, and 9 is, you're seen as the peacemaker. 1 is the perfectionist. And again, the language matters. So I think that I remember when we did it with Ginger, we could fill out the name that we wanted. And you're talking about the virtue, and for the 8, do you remember when we had to do the depiction? I don't remember what the 9s did, but Ginger, in this training that we were in San Francisco, the different groups got broken up, the different types got broken up, and we had to act out what it was for our type. And do you remember what the 8 type was?
You'll
do you
have
want to tell it?
I can literally see you all. But I wouldn't be able to describe it.
Yeah,
but that's what's so amazing. This was 10 years ago, and that's how impactful this was. So you go ahead.
Yeah, there are moments from that training, because every time I had to get my ICF credentials renewed, I had my training every 3 years, and I had to get 50 credits. I would just take another Enneagram course.
Yeah, that's great.
But we had to do a depiction. It was not a dance, but it was like act out what it was like to be our type. And for the challenge for the 8 is vulnerability. We don't want to be blindsided. We protect others because really we want to be protected. As an 8, it's one of the reasons I probably got into leadership development is I want to make sure that the system has a leader that's going to keep people safe. And if everything's organized within the system, there isn't unfairness and there's justice. So even when I look at my type, I can see why I studied what I did and why I got into this field. I think there are 3 8s in the class. We acted out where we're walking down the street and we all fell down. And somebody came, and we just kind of like fell, like we tripped and we're on the ground. And somebody came up and offered us a hand to get up. And all 3 of us said no. I'm okay, I got it. And then somebody else came, then again asked again, and then no. And that happened a couple more times until finally somebody reached out again and like looked into one of our eyes, and then we slowly then became able to accept the help. So it was this like strength piece of like, I'm okay, I got it, I can take care of myself, and yet more powerful when we allowed others to come in and show our vulnerability.
The key thing with the 8s in what you're saying is they are, okay, a lot of people will call them bulldozers. And I'm like, no, you got it all wrong. They're big diesel snowplows. And the reason why I say that, so obviously some people that don't live in an atmosphere that needs big diesel snowplows, just imagine when you're watching the news and you see these big diesel snowplows, they're absolutely needed in those areas up in the north. You can't just have a Ford truck with a plow on it when there's a foot of snow on a highway. You have to have these big diesel snowplows, but they're designed to plow paths for others. And that is really what an 8 is designed to do when they're healthy. When an 8 is healthy, they're going to say, hey, everyone, get behind me. I've got this. I've got you. Now, obviously, when they're a little less healthy, they're going to nick people on the side of the roads and people are going to be like, dude, what is going on? And you're like, well, then why are you on the road? And unfortunately, when an 8 is unhealthy, which is, we're talking really unhealth, they just plow over people they care. And this is why the levels of health are so important in the Enneagram, because it's the same core motivations, same reasons why they do what they do, but it's coming out of them in vastly different ways. So think of a type 8 that's really healthy would be like a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There's lots of people in the civil rights movement, but he said, I've got you. Everyone get behind me, maybe right behind me because they're helping, but I'm going to be the front runner. I'm going to take on the opposition so that you all don't have to be that front runner. But then when you get really, really, really down at the bottom of the barrel, you're going to have people that just literally plow over people, and we can just kind of leave it at that. When we understand the different mechanisms, it's really powerful. So that's how powerful 8s are. But here's the thing. They are so afraid of being betrayed and blindsided because either they or someone really close to them when they were younger was blindsided and betrayed and deeply wounded them. And the reason why it deeply wounded them, and this is what most people, and this is why I bring up this example of them being so big and powerful, is because most people see 8s as like, oh, well, they're this big diesel snowplow, nothing hurts them. And I'm like, you've got it all wrong. They're actually some of the most tender on the Enneagram. Their heart is so tender. It's kind of like, when you have your arm, let's say it got a 3rd-degree burn, you're not just going to like walk around and let it hit. You're going to do everything to protect it. That's what this armor around the 8 is. They aren't sure who's going to harm and hurt them. And they vowed to themselves they would never let that happen again, whether to them or like they saw in someone else. So what you're describing is what I love, because when you guys fell to the ground and you said no to certain help, at first it's, I don't know if I trust you because I've taught myself not to trust anyone because I don't see people as trustworthy. I've seen harm. Over time, what I heard from that analogy is the person you said is that person really looked into our eyes. And that was where the trust came in because they saw you for you. 8s are really good at sensing. And then you felt safe to move and have them help you.
Yeah.
That
Nailed
is
it.
a perfect example.
Nailed it, Beth. I think sometimes people struggle with the term. I want to talk about nature and nurture. When I first read about 8s, we had Holland Palmer come, which was amazing at my graduate school. And that was when they were doing the full narrative method. And the narrative method for everybody out there is you get the 9 types up at a table, or they'd have certain days, and they would talk about what it was like to be that type. And there were moments where you could relate clearly to all 9 types. But typically there was one type that you kind of thought was your doppelganger. I mean, you were just like, oh my gosh, everything they're saying and really it was touch your heart. And it was like, how do you know these things about me? There's so many similarities that you really could feel. So that was incredibly powerful. But when I first read about the 8s, it was like most 8s grow up in a gang. I mean, seriously, in a combative.
I know,
and I was like, oh my
stereotype.
gosh. I'm like,
No.
my parents were like Irish Catholics. Like we were not like in Hell's Kitchen in a gang. But I can, then when you start to break it down around who had the power in your family system, how did you get love? How are you treated? And it doesn't have to be in a bad way. I mean, I was a bold, curious child. I was given a lot of power and free reign. I was the youngest of 5. So in my world, I can understand how I probably needed a little bit more protecting. It wasn't that they weren't protective. It was that it was, and again, cause sometimes some of these things are precognitive. We can't really remember the incident. It's not a conscious memory, or it can't fit that way. But there's something that within us that didn't get what we really needed, and we adjusted.
Yep. Absolutely. And
So what were you going to
so,
say about the 8? Explain that.
well, I think what I want to say, because I think this is an important piece of what you're just saying, is that at least from my perspective, and I would say that there's, I don't know how many, but I would say a lot of the Enneagram teachers that it is a both nurture and nature. What I
Yep.
mean by that is I believe we are born with our Enneagram type, our main Enneagram type, and
Hmm.
think of it as lenses, like glasses that you see the world through. So, as an infant up until now, so on our logo, the type 9 is a colored purple dot, not because nines are purple, it's just the color we put with it. And the 8 is dark maroon. Okay, so you have dark maroon lenses on, I've got purple lenses on as little kids, and even to this day, that's how we saw the world. Now,
Yep.
you and I are going to look at each other and go, why did you react that way? Or why did you say that? That's
Right.
weird, because react to the world differently. But I believe we're born our type. But if you and I, let's say we're twins, okay, and we had a father that was verbally abusive, and I would see it, interpret it, and react to it in very different ways,
Yes.
even though we're in the same household, same circumstances. As a type 9, I would do everything possible to make my father happy, to people please, to placate, to figure out how to change things, or I would withdraw, hide, numb, disassociate. I can guarantee you that would not be your approach. What would have been your approach?
Oh, would probably be go after it. It would
Right.
probably be to challenge the power, would probably
Especially
to like,
what would happen, especially if you saw him berating me and we're
oh,
twins.
yeah, I would defend you. I would step in the way. Like I've learned how not to be, but I would defend you.
Right.
I would stick myself in between. I would
Mhm.
not allow it.
Exactly. And neither as a child, in a sense, is right or wrong. Me numbing out, disassociating, placating, people
Right.
pleasing, accommodate, all of those can be bad things too. Now,
Yep.
maybe because I'm going along to get along versus challenging and being strong, but neither was right or wrong. How we went about it probably had a little bit of both. But you've learned over the years how your personality is structured and how you see and react to the world. There are things about that protective nature which are amazing. Like I just said about like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We need that, but we need it done in a healthy way. Being able to understand each person and bring about peace and harmony can be absolutely amazing when done with competence and assertiveness and wisdom, but not by just going along to people please. Our characteristics, that's why the levels of health. Are we doing this a healthy way or not healthy way? Are we using our internal GPS to understand our inner world, which means, am I headed in a healthy direction? Or have I started to veer off course and derailing? And is my alert system like alerting me, waking me up to choose a better, healthier path? That's the key thing here. And then when we're raised in whatever household circumstance, it could be with teachers, coaches, etc., those influence us greatly. And it will influence us in healthy to unhealthy ways. Meaning, let's say, again, you and I are twins and we're in this unhealthy family. It's like our parents are helping us to learn how to cultivate our internal garden, but they've
Yep.
given us a snow shovel. And it's
Yep.
like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, they're not giving you the tools, the resources, and the knowledge to cultivate what you need. But if you come from a healthy house, they're going to give you all those gardening tools, tips, the right hoses, the gloves, et cetera, so that you know how to truly cultivate that inner world. So it is, again, nature and nurture all in one. And the other thing I would say is someone says, yeah, but I went through, that's what created my type. What we usually say is trauma or circumstances do not create type, they reveal your type. Because just saying earlier, like you would have gone through about it completely different than I would. When you think back to, oh, well, I became this type because of that, hey, that is a great way for you to find your type, not so much that the circumstance created your type.
Really, that's a really helpful and instructive distinction because it is I do believe when we go to nurture and nature, I do believe we're born with this type and how a certain personality. I also believe on a spiritual level that we agree to come in and learn these lessons. And that's part of the challenge of having this soul and this divine and this human body is everything's an opportunity for more growth, for our own wholeness and our own self-worth. And what I say about the Enneagram, when I say it's a strategy of the child, is whatever strategies you had to deploy as a child based on your core personality type, your core Enneagram type, those can become unconscious usually, because a child usually can't advocate for themselves in a way. Parents aren't often handing the right tools, right? Because we're still all growing. The child is the one that's adapting. And those adaptations are what creates the unconscious, really cements the unconscious motivations. And that's what the Enneagram really, because we may see two people doing the exact same things, but they're doing it for very different reasons. And that's what's so different about the Enneagram. And what I love is that it unpacks and it goes deeper. It's a deeper conversation. So I love your explanation on kind of two twins that are approaching it from two different ways. I also love something that is unique about your work, Beth, both you and Jeff, is that you have this approach to the Enneagram that is, you have what you can offer people as a faith-based framework in your work. And I'm curious, how do you hold faith alongside psychological insight? How does that show up in your work and your approach?
So, like from a faith-based perspective, a lot of times what we found early on when we were doing this work was there wasn't anyone helping people from a faith-based perspective how to use it within their faith system. And it felt disjointed and confusing versus something that we can use alongside our faith. Not that it takes over our faith. That's not. But how can it bring the clarity and the insights that we can use so that we can actually live a healthier life from a faith-based perspective? So that's one reason why we did it. My husband being, he was a pastor for 20 years and went to a seminary for 4 years. We were able just to really use a lot of those insights and skills. The Enneagram itself is a tool for everyone. It's very spiritual. When we decided to kind of go that route, the reason was is that there was already a lot of teachers putting it through their own spiritual framework. And so the Enneagram it's a tool. It's a map of understanding our inner world. And it really goes along wherever you go along. So when you use it, let's say in leadership and development in the workplace, it can totally go there just as seamlessly as it can in your faith or in your parenting or in your marriage. Think of it more as a foundational understanding of the why behind people think, feel, and behave, whether in healthy ways or less healthy ways. And so we're going to just integrate that knowledge wherever we're currently at, whatever circumstance, situation. And that is where we build off. So, you can use it from just a psychological perspective. You can use it from a faith perspective and anywhere in between.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. I want to share with our listeners, I mean, because you do have a variety of offerings, like you've trained over 2,500 Enneagram coaches. So you're bringing people in, much like Ginger was doing, like bringing in people and
Mhm.
teaching them a method in the Enneagram so they can go and take that out and help others in their own awareness in the Enneagram. But you also have different groups that you support as well. So talk about that. You and Jeff work with
Yeah.
couples. You have a couples program. Like what other offerings
Yeah,
can
this kind
people?
of like, so you could go anywhere from our free stuff. So on our website, yourenneagramcoach.com, at the very bottom is all the resources. I think there's a link at the top for resources too. But we have a link to just a free basic overview of the Enneagram. And it's just a few videos, very short, simple. So that's a great place to start if you're like, okay, she said a lot of things today. What in the world's going on? So there's a lot of free stuff. So then I help people to understand their personality in these bite-sized lessons of basically explore. So we have a course called Exploring You. So once you find your type, then you can go into the explore. We also have a marriage course called Becoming Us, and I literally
Mm.
created 45 courses. That is much
Are
more
you kidding?
faith-based. Yeah, I
That's
did.
amazing.
It
Yeah,
was it
amazing.
was a lot of work, but it was super helpful. And then we created our Become an Enneagram Coach program, and that's the one that we've trained coaches in. And then beyond that, we've helped our coaches that prefer to have specializations to also kind of elevate their training. So we've got coaches that are more specialized in marriage and family, specialized in helping parents understand themselves. A lot of people think I'm trying
Hmm.
to help them to type their kids. And no, how to be the healthiest parent, no matter
Right.
what child you have. And then one that goes into more deeper of the inner world. And then the last is leadership and development. So we help our coaches again decide what if they want to elevate their training they can, and those are the so far the ones that we have customized for them. And then we've got our YouTube channel and podcast, and
Yeah.
all the things. So
Yeah.
lots of
Yeah.
places to get free, helpful information. We've just redid our website and I love it. Honestly,
I do too. I have to say, the quality of work that you and Jeff put out between the tools to the website, it's really amazing. Hats off to you because
yeah, thank
I
you.
mean, there's a lot, a lot of information and you make it accessible. And you also have tools that really distill down the core concepts and help people map quickly. So
Yeah.
congrats.
Because our real focus, we do give a lot of free information in our website because our real focus and attention is on creating coaches. And so that's
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we put most of our energy. So we just want people to come and explore and learn. And hey, you might someday be that person that's, I want to help the next person with this tool. And that's exactly what we do.
So I want to ask one question about the Enneagram. If someone's new to the Enneagram, Beth, what's one question a listener can ask themselves this week now to start noticing their patterns?
The biggest thing, so if they go to yourenneagramcoach.com/core motivations, they'll download our core motivation sheet. And this is exactly how to find your Enneagram type quickly and simply. Read through all 9 types core motivations. It's very quick and simple, and rate them most like me to least like me. And let's say 1 to 9, not as in types, but 1 to 9 is most like you, least like you. And then during the week, start to really think, okay, when a circumstance comes up that I'm feeling, let's say, activated or triggered or upset or irritable, think about why. And then look through those core motivations and see which one is most true for why you got activated. Now, the core motivations isn't just about activation and frustration, it's also about joy and great things. But we can more quickly identify ourselves in those more frustrated circumstances. And so that's why I kind of say, look at it from that lens. And that's going to probably help you to pinpoint what is really going on under the hood and what's getting you kind of riled up. Look at the core motivations from that perspective, and that should really help.
I think that is outstanding advice. And I also encourage people because most times when we get stressed, the ego likes to go into why we're right. Or let's say we acted out, we overreacted. Then we go into this rationalization of why it was okay and then focusing
Mhm.
on rationalizing it. And one of the things I always encourage people to do is just what you did in the beginning of your story is ask yourself the question, or why is it so important that they're wrong and you're right? And that's a big part, just stepping back and noticing, what am I doing here without any shame, without any
Mhm.
judgment? Because the thing that I love about the Enneagram, and I think it's get choked up talking about it, when it's the strategy of
Mhm.
the child is just looking for love, you know? And when
Right.
I see people acting out sometimes, even with my clients, like it's very easy for me to go to a heart-centered space because
Mhm.
I'm like, this is how this person was either trying to get love and protecting themselves. We don't need to be, these are micro traumas it's barring any big thing. What we just need to do is hold space for that child that was trying to get that. And
Yeah.
now let's, in the healthy adult way, get our needs met, right?
Yes. And
Yes.
why I say that is oftentimes when people start learning about the Enneagram, they're like, someone is reading my internal diary, or is there cameras in my house? Like
Totally. Totally.
it is
How do you know
that
me? Yeah.
they are revealing. But if you think of it from like watching, let's say, a video camera feed, like it's just going to show you what happened. That's what the Enneagram is doing. It's not trying to shame, it is not trying to belittle, it's not trying to harm. It is literally revealing all the goods to all the bads and everything in between so that you can be aware and have more agency to
Yeah.
navigate your internal world to a healthier place.
Beautifully said. So you're so good at this. Okay, I'm going to ask you a live your jam question. And what I believe is that, when people are doing what they love in the world, that meaningful work makes their soul sing. And that's why I encourage people, it's not selfish. Figure out what you like to do. And it doesn't have to take any form. It could be like gardening, it can be 10 things, but follow those threads. And when you're doing the work that you love, it makes your soul sing. And then there's this automatic reaction to go out and share that work with the world. And then we have everybody is helping each other and connecting to each other. You are so clearly, Jeff are so clearly doing that. Can you tell our listeners how you see what you're doing is making a difference in the world and how that feeds your soul?
Coming from a Tech Nine's perspective, The type 9, we see everyone else's perspective easily. That's how we get along with everyone, right? So, why I say that is it is absolutely vital for my soul to see everyone have a place at the table, that it be a round table, that everyone is important, everyone has a voice. So, when I'm coaching or when I'm teaching, writing books, whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to champion each of the 9 types because not one is better than the other. They all are super incredible. And I feel like that's a great example is what I said earlier about the 8s being a big diesel snowplow. I was getting so frustrated that people, their first reaction is kind of to put them down. And I'm like, you completely misunderstand them. You are not seeing them for who they really are. And so for me, when I get to let each type shine and each person see their type for who they really are and who they could be and watch them walk in that direction and that path, it is literally the best thing ever. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And I get to experience the joy of watching it happen over and over again. And I hope others would want to join. And, there's many that do. Obviously, they become coaches and whatnot, or just enjoy using the Enneagram correctly. Again, not use it as a sword or as a shield and hurting people, but as something that can truly help themselves, their relationships, their workplaces, families, etc. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah, it's important work, and I'm so glad you're doing it. And behalf of all 8s, thank you for that. I love the idea of the round table and everybody having a seat.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So this work is so important, and I love having you on here. Everybody, I'm going to put, like I said, some information up on how you can find Beth and Jeff and their amazing work. And I can't thank you enough for being on here. It's been a delight to connect with you. We've always been back and forth the last 10 years, supporting each other and cheering each other on. But to watch your work come out in the way that it has in such a professional, high quality manner, and also all the people that you're making impact on, it's truly been a delight for me. So you keep living
Thank
your
you.
jam.